Hey everyone, this is Ed, the Everyday Atheist. Sometimes after the show, we further our discussion, and most often we don't record it. But this week, Dave and I stayed back after everybody had left and have a discussion. Dave asked me some questions about Mormonism and my experience with it, and seeing it was Canada Day, and Dave had a few, we decided to just speak on a few things and hit the record button. Our conversation meanders and sways a bit. We go through various topics like Mormonism, Scientology, and a few more. We are releasing this because we think that the content in there may be important to some people. And I think it's a very decent discussion. We haven't discussed Scientology very much on our show, so it was a great opportunity for us to put that forward. We hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, here's that little conversation. So basically, like, when I was 11, when I needed a friend, they were friendly. They came to my door. I didn't have to go to them. They were there. They were making me feel special when I was feeling down because of the life I lived growing up. And they gave you that promise that, oh, wait a second, you can see your father again. What are you talking about? Your father's not dead. He's just not here. He's in another place, and you can meet him someday.
Yeah, but where was your mom at this time?
My parents were home. My mom was there.
Could you imagine letting some religion come into your home and speak to your child?
No, not at all.
Or tell them things about their dead parent?
No, I wouldn't. But
I personally had a religious, you know about this. I had a religious group come to my house and ask if I wouldn't mind sending my children to some fucking wackadoo school about ethics and morality. And they didn't present themselves as religious at the door, but I grilled them and got to the point where, they had to admit that they were Christians, and I basically told them that their ethics and their morals are going to come from me, and you should fuck off. Like, you can't come to somebody's house and ask them for their children, and you're going to teach them stuff.
Right, and my mother's point of view was he needs religion somehow, and these guys are here to give it to him. So,
Matt, do you hold resentment for that?
Not to my mother, no. I hold resentment to my mother on a different level.
But not for letting a cult come into your home and grab you up at 11? Because I'd be pretty pissed about that.
No, I think my mother thought what she was doing was the best thing at the time.
Yeah, that's kind of a cop-out too, though, right?
No, well, to a certain extent, but I put myself in my mother's shoes. She was a husbandless.
Must hurt your feet.
But I mean, she had 4 children that she was juggling and her husband was dead.
Mm-hmm.
She just got into a new marriage with a man who was an alcoholic and who was abusive, and she wanted. I think she wanted me to turn out better than,
Yeah. Let's talk about your dad for maybe 30 seconds, because I know on the old show you told the story, but maybe for Americans and people in Poland that just started listening to us after you joined the show, just basically tell us who your father was and the magnitude and the scale of how your father died and what it meant to Canada.
Well, my father was William Abraham Smith. He was 33 when he died. He was on an oil rig. It's a semi-submersible oil rig that was the largest semi-submersible oil rig in the world at the time. And he had just gotten the job about 6 months prior. He was, he had just was taxi driver. He worked at a bakery before, and he thought he was making a great benefit to his family.
And he was.
Yes, and he was. He was making a tremendous amount of money compared to anything he could have been doing in Newfoundland at the time. And due to human error, the oil rig sank in a tremendous storm in February, Valentine's Day actually, in 1982.
And that's the Ocean Ranger.
Yeah, it was the Ocean Ranger. Yeah.
And it's listed as a Canadian tragedy.
Yeah, all 84 crew perished. There was no survivors. Only 22 bodies were ever found. My father's not being one of them. That plays a mind fuck on you too, because you ever see shows like Gilligan's Island, you start to think that, wait, maybe he's on an island and he just needs to be rescued.
Yeah, where there's icebergs. He's on an iceberg.
So you play that in your mind as a kid, and you think about, all these different scenarios that where maybe he's here, or maybe, and you can't really understand what death is. Because I was 3 when my father died. Mm-hmm. And to be able to process what that was, it took me years to understand that my father was gone and never coming back. And enter the Mormons to say, wait, no, you're wrong. He's still alive. He's just in a different place, and you can get there too. It's a pretty mean hook to launch at an 11-year-old boy.
Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. I put some of the blame on your mother.
Oh, I do, to a respect, but again, I think what she was trying to do was try to balance the equation, my stepfather's influence versus something more positive, And I think
but it wasn't positive.
No,
and had she stuck her nose in it more, maybe she would have realized.
Well, I mean, David, when I was 16, when I baptized my parents.
Yeah, I know that. I remember you saying that.
Yeah. And
so
I kind of felt guilty for bringing them into it as well,
But at 11 years old, who is responsible for you?
Right. And again, I'm not defending my mother, but I try to.
And I'm not trying to insult your mother.
No. I understand. It's just getting at the issue. I think that my mother believed that this was a positive influence with all the...
I unplugged my headphone by accident. Sorry, buddy.
No sweat. I think that, she was trying to balance the equation, I think. And my mother came from a really religious background. She was an Anglican by birth, but went to a Catholic school. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we had denominated schools at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think she thought that religion was important, and I think that she figured no matter where it came from, as long as it was religion, it was fine.
That's just crazy talk, because what if it was Scientology?
I know. And what if it was Islam?
Yeah. It's insane, right?
Yeah, looking back at it now, yeah, of course. I mean... And
you often hear that in society. Oh, as long as he believes in God, as long as he's religious.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you a better person. It often makes you a worse person. It often, most of the time, makes you less moral.
It makes you solipsistic. It makes you think that it's all about you.
Yeah, and it makes you live for death instead of live for life.
Right. It's a preparatory state, right?
Yes.
And one of the things I think is most immoral about religion is that it dictates to you what your moral code is. It doesn't allow you to bend and mold.
And it's stagnant.
Right.
It's a stagnant moral code. It doesn't change. And it's from fucking 2,500 years ago.
And when we knew nothing.
And there was not that many people around. We didn't have the weapons that we do now. We didn't have the gender classifications. We didn't have the, it's just, there's a whole pile of stuff in society that even the founding fathers of the United States of America that wrote the Constitution wrote it to be amended because they knew that things were going to change. Where in the Bible, they didn't write it to be amended.
No, and the really scary part about it is that most of what's in the Old Testament wasn't really a Jewish concept. Most of these things came from other religions that were prior to them. And like when they were captive into Babylon, and a lot of these religious beliefs came from there. They adopted it. Oh, that God is powerful. Well, my God's going to be more powerful than that. And this kind of tit for tat kind of thing brought about the most horrific book ever written. And then you get a group like Islam. Well,
I would say that the group of books, right? Like the Quran, the Torah, and the New Testament, you couple them together because I don't think one, like maybe the Old Testament, but the Quran and the Old Testament, you have to look at them on equal footing.
Well, I think the Quran, I think the Quran is just a plagiarism of the Old Testament.
Yes.
Of the worst
I would say
parts.
look at them as a group in general.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the Abrahamic religions.
Yeah, what really, like when we go back to Mormonism and they come up with this new Bible.
Would you sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Would you classify Mormonism as an Abrahamic religion?
Yes.
You would, eh?
Yeah, because they not only
use... I would classify it as a long con.
Well, it's both, because it uses elements of the... they still use the Bible, the King James Version of the Bible. They use that with same... the Book of Mormon has the same canonical equivalence to the Bible. It's just that the Bible represents the Israelites over in Palestine, whereas the Book of Mormon is a story of the quote-unquote story, because it's all bullshit, of the North American inhabitants. And they're both supposed to be complementary to each other.
Do you remember when back in the 80s, and I don't think it was early 90s, but at midnight TV used to shut off?
Yeah.
And you'd get the national anthem?
Yeah.
Well, I remember for a while after the national anthem, they would play Mormon ads.
Really?
Because it was American television, right? So it'd be like, Jesus Christ, His life and times in the Americas.
Oh, no, I never remember that.
Yeah, it was...
Oh,
I just remembered it now. It's crazy. It's, like the whole concept of it is so fucking insane that for anybody, and I'm sorry to say this to you, but for anybody to believe it, it's for me it's fucking crazy.
Well, I mean, looking back at it now, I agree. It's absolutely absurd, but
I've always said this. I've always said, you take somebody that's never heard of any of this, like an old person or a person my age, and you sit them down and you say, I would like to tell you about Jesus Christ. In my head, because when I was a kid, I pegged it as bullshit. So if somebody sat me down right now and tried to tell me the story of Joseph Smith and I'd never heard of it before, I would tell them they're fucking crazy. I would tell them to get some psychiatric fucking help. Like, if you actually believe that, you're a special kind of fucked up.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think that the biggest issue, though, that
how are you converting adults? Because obviously they've never heard of this Joseph Smith character before.
Because they already have that religious indoctrination in the beginning.
Such a... no,
man. It is. Because I can tell you, the easiest people to convert are Catholics. When on my mission, Mexican Catholics, Brazilian Catholics were easier to...
That's just because they're hungry. And you give them food.
That's what got me kicked out. Oh no, well not kicked out, but got me in trouble when I was on my mission. But no,
They're
I mean
hungry and they want food.
we converted them like crazy because it was something that
Do you think they actually converted, or they were just like,
Nah.
si, senor, yeah, tell me more?
Some people were like that. One lady wanted us to come by so we could marry her and get her a green card. You know,
To come to Canada.
no, she thought we were actually. Well, I was American, right?
Okay. She was a Mexican.
Yeah.
Was she hot?
No, but
Oh.
but I mean that kind of thing happens. But the majority of them, I think, they were converting because, and I think it's the Mexican and South Americans that convert really quickly because you're saying this book is about your ancestors. It's not about my ancestors. This is your book. This is not mine. The Book of Mormon is about your ancestors.
But the natives that they're talking about aren't South American natives.
No, but they say that all the native, well, all Aboriginal people came from the Bering Land Bridge and spread down into South America. So they were all connected that way, right?
But the ones that like the ones that are in Brazil are probably further away. Not I don't want to say genetically, but further away ancestrally than the ones in Canada are from Russians.
Well, they've diversed more. They came down, but I mean culturally, the biggest two cultures in North America.
Okay. Yeah.
Because linguistically, they're all related, except for when you get the Inuit involved. The Inuit's language are much more.
And then they speak in a series of clicks and grunts, and they sing silly songs. I'm just kidding. That's Africans, but they do have throat singing, though.
Yes, and the Inuit are much more distinctive than the Native Americans.
Yes.
And they're more closely related all the way down.
Did you know in Alaska they like to be called Eskimos?
Yeah, it's a word that means eater of raw meat.
Mm-hmm. And in Canada they don't like that shit.
No,
that doesn't play.
But there are
Inuit.
But there are two separate groupings. There were actually the Aleutian Islands. Well, the Aleutian Eskimos are called in Alaska, but in Canada they're more related to the Greenland or the Thule people that used to be here before. So,
yeah. Did you know that Greenland is considered North America?
Really, I thought it was its own unique.
It's part of the 23 countries that make up North America. But you didn't know there was 23 countries that made up North America, did you?
Yeah, including Central America, which is right down there at the isthmus. I got that much. I don't know. I didn't know Greenland was considered North America.
Greenland is.
Yeah. Okay.
Which makes that island that Denmark thinks it's owns ours.
That's right.
Yeah.
And well, you know why they call it Greenland, right?
Yeah, because they wanted to trick people into going there.
That's right. It's fucking icy as hell.
And they wanted to keep people out of Iceland, so they called it Iceland.
Yeah.
Or that's the story we're told in Canada, anyways.
Yeah.
I just don't know how this whole thing hasn't come to a head with the Mormon Church.
And to be quite honest, I don't either, because there's enough information out there now.
Because Scientology, it has come to a head.
Yeah, I think it's imploding.
Like they've lost so many of their big members. There's so many documentaries about how fucking crazy it is, and they rip people off. So does the Mormon. So do the Mormons.
But I think Mormonism ducks that in some respects because it's become a mainstream religion. Unlike Scientology is cultish and cliquish because, unless you're super rich, you can't afford to do all the steps. Mm-hmm. So that keeps the group very small. Whereas you got Mormonism that can spread worldwide rapidly, and it hides as a Christian religion, and it piggybacks on that, that same thing that Islam is doing now. It piggybacks on the moderates in Christian, so it hides itself under that rubric. And I think.
Did I ever tell you about the time I got thrown out of the Scientology center in Vancouver?
No.
So it was back in like 2007, and this is before I started like researching them like crazy. I was walking by. I was living in the area. I see this thing, and it says Scientology, and it's got a cross in their symbol. They have a cross.
Yeah.
So I went in and I said, I'm a little confused. This thing says Scientology, and you have a cross there. Are you a religion? What exactly are you? And they're like, well, we're not a religion per se. We have a bunch of different people from a bunch of different religions here. And I said, well, then what does it have to do with science? And she gave me some bullshit excuse. And then I was like, well, what about the cross? Why do you have the cross there if you're not a religion? And then as soon as I got to that question, there was like a bunch of people and they were escorting me out the door. Too many questions.
What you should have done is got that Dianetics, not the Dianetics book, but the that fucking thing you hold on to and you get.
Oh, the E whatever reader.
Yeah, I'd love to do that just for shits and giggles.
Yeah. What a terrible lie detector test. It's like ancient.
Yeah. Did you ever read about about Xenu?
Yes.
And how these planes that are like D-12.
Yes, that are like the World War II bombers.
Yeah.
That flew over the volcanoes and dropped all the Thetans into well, they weren't Thetans at that time. They were alien beings into the volcanoes, and then dropped an atom bomb on the volcano. The volcano erupts, sends the dead aliens into the air, or into the atmosphere, which is now called Thetans, and they come down, and any of your afflictions like gay, drug addict, alcoholic, gambler, murderer, rapist, child molester, wife abuser, thief. These are the Thetans that have come down and infested your body. Now, the way that you get rid of these Thetans is by going through the Scientology system. You have to get clear, and what being clear means is being rid of your Thetans. And it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're a rich person. It costs $30,000 if you're a poor person to reach this point. Now, when you first get to the Church of Scientology, what they do is the EMF reader. It's just basically a lie detector test, but it's like a really crude and rudimentary. If you haven't seen it, it's like two hollow rods with wires that are connected to an old device, and they get you to tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. And once you do that, they kind of have you trapped, because they ask you questions like, have you ever had sex with an animal? Have you ever had sex with a sibling? Have you ever had gay sex? Because they ask you the really, really deepest, darkest secrets. And once they know those secrets, they have you hooked. So you're not really going to leave, because they can blackmail you. So you just continue to go through the process of trying to get clear. And they keep all this stuff hidden from you, but when you get it up into the upper levels, that's when you start to learn more about the next level. And there's been all kinds of promises made, like levitation, mind control. You can move things with your mind. They don't want to look like they've been duped, right? So they'll get to, level 6 or whatever it is, and the other people will be like, so you're at fucking level 6, you can move things with your mind now? And they don't want to look like an ass. It's just like the Pentecostals that pretend to talk in words, speak in tongue, because they see everybody else doing it. They're like, oh yeah, I'm magic now, man, I can move shit with my mind. So then these people on level 5, they're like, well, fuck, I got to get to level 6. Because if he can move shit with his mind, I'm definitely going to move shit with my mind when I get there. And then they get to level 6. And then the people that were at level 5 with them before are like, so you can move shit with your mind now? And they're like, fuck yeah, I can move shit with my mind. I'm at fucking level 6. Man, next step, I'm clear. And that's basically how it works in a nutshell.
But when you put it that way, it just shows how much of bullshit it is, and it makes.
Well, it is complete and utter bullshit. I'm sorry, and I'm not a fucking genius of a guy. Like, if you have any ability to think skeptically at all, when you look at something like that, you should see it. You know, and there is a lot smarter people than me that get sucked into Scientology and have a lot more money than me and a lot more prestige in life. Like, obviously, people like, I'm not saying that Tom Cruise and John Travolta are smarter than me. They just have more prestige and probably better education than me. For these people to get sucked in, it's pretty wild, right? Like, especially once they break out the part about Xenu, because like, you know, before you go clear that they're gonna break out Xenu, and they're gonna be like, okay, so this whole time this has been a preparation for this.
Can you ask for a refund?
This is a story that was told to L. Ron Hubbard by an alien overlord about his evil cousin. His evil cousin was named Xenu. There was a battle on a planet. Let's call that planet. You know what I mean? Like, it's so fucking stupid.
It's like the worst sci-fi novel you've ever read.
It is, and the planet's names, I like to. A couple pops in, so I've forgotten, but they're like really basic too. It's like G45. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. If you haven't looked into Scientology, really, if you've just been like, Scientologists are fucking crazy, look into Xenu and look into Thetans. The other thing about Scientology that's really fucking crazy is anybody that speaks out against it, they go after.
Yeah, legally.
They go after them like fucking gangbusters. And the thing is like, if you've ever had a confrontation with a Scientologist like I have, like, I've had confrontations with them out in the streets of Ottawa and in Toronto. This is after Vancouver. They'll start repeating the same stuff over and over again. And what they'll repeat to you is, what is your crime? And what they mean by that is, they've admitted all the really bad shit that they've done, and they have it on recording already. So what they're saying to you is, what's your crime? What's your crime? What's your crime? Meaning, because you've done bad things in your life, your opinion or your thought on it is, your word in court would be worthless if people really knew who you were, because they've admitted to who they are, to the things that they've done.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And because the church has convinced them you're a liar because you've done these things, or nobody's going to fucking take you seriously after you've done these things, they automatically think that they can push it off onto you too.
Well, I mean, and think about it this way too. They use the same thing as the Mormons in social pressure and manipulation. And plus, where they have, if you did anything wrong and you were a Scientologist, they have a list, they have a paperwork on
punishment.
Paper. Yeah, and if you try to leave, they'll try to discredit you, like you just said, by exposing all those dirty secrets.
Yeah. Think about this. You join the Sea Org, it is like a billion-year contract. Think about that. You
Okay.
like you know, for people that work in the office, people that work in construction industry or fishery like Ed did, you don't really sign a contract. You're either worth your salt or you're not. But in offices, they sign a contract, and like, think about signing a billion-year contract. Like, how ridiculous that is.
I can't even think about signing a contract that would be worth 100 years. Can you imagine a billion?
But then they pay them 25 cents a day.
Yeah, no, it's like slave labor.
Yeah, even worse.
Yeah, there's some guy in Bangladesh in a sweatshop making more money.
Making more money. He's a baller, man. Like all those Pakistani kids that are making clothes for fucking the real Canadian Superstore, they're ballers compared to Scientologists.
Yes,
That's why they can't get away too, right? Because they have no fucking money.
no, that's right. I mean, where do you start to relive your life? You got nowhere to go, and
The one thing that they did do in the 70s and 80s and 90s before the internet really took off is they marketed themselves right.
Yeah.
And they went after the celebrities because people want to be like Tom Cruise. They want to be like John Travolta. They want to be like all the female, like Christy Alley was big back then on Cheers. They had, what was that? King of Queens, the wife from King of Queens.
oh yeah, I forget her name.
She was big, like huge. She's no longer. She left the Church of Scientology, but she was huge in the church. A few of the kids from that 70s show, like Donna was a Scientologist. What's his name there? The delinquent that lived in Eric's basement. What was his name?
Oh,
His last name is Matheson in real life.
yeah, I don't remember his name.
And
yeah.
and his sister, his sister in real life, Matheson, Hannah Matheson, is on The Walking Dead. Her name, she's Tara on The Walking Dead. She's a Scientologist.
Holy God.
Like they have a lot of they have a lot of pull with fucking celebrities,
Well,
and they have a lot of fucking money because they charge like a percentage of, you know.
well, everything you buy, everything like the book,
Yeah, the book, everything. Yeah,
and every level is more money.
mm-hmm.
And if like one of the guys that left, he was an actor. I forget his name, but anyway.
But he has a raspy voice, right?
Yeah. He said,
he's balding.
"Pardon? Yeah.
He's balding. He's like one of the biggest outspoken people.
And he's the one that said like he did this whole level up to level some odd, and then they changed the books and had to do the whole fucking thing all over again just so they can get more money out of you.
Yeah.
I was like, what a crap.
And how would an adult like that, like when you listen to him speak about it afterwards, he seems so fucking rational against it.
Yeah, but I think that once that cognitive dissonance just snaps, it's like a floodgate just opens and you go, holy fuck, I've been duped. You know, how, and then you get angry.
I have to say, I've said this before and I asked the other guests, I didn't ask Bryce tonight, but what they would have rather have done, spent, you know, the beginning part of their life as religious and then, or been an atheist their whole life. I have to say that I'm happy to have been an atheist my whole life.
To a point, I would have rather be an atheist all my life. But I do take something from being Mormon is what to rail against. I know what it feels like to be duped. I know that anger. But the one thing that you have that I don't is that no one can accuse you of buying the Kool-Aid. Like, they can't use that against you. You're only, like, you get this stupid comment, oh, you're only an atheist because you're railing against the bad religion. Try our religion. You know what I mean?
They still say that shit to me, Edward.
But you can just say, fuck, I've never been religious. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You know, I can't ever say that, right?
Yeah. But, I don't know. Yeah, the religious people always say that. What are you angry about? I like, if I'm having a debate with a religious person, I never bring up my backstory because you know that's where they're straight gonna go.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and I was an atheist a long time before any of that shit ever took place.
And
my grandfather was a minister.
Yeah, you said.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not like I didn't grow up around religion. I just didn't believe in it.
And Christopher Hitchens talks about that too. Like he says he couldn't buy it from day one. You know what I mean? It's like, even though there's a segment of society that doesn't have that pull, religious pull. And I can't say that I ever had a religious pull, like I ever had these deep questions that people want answered, like who am I and why am I here? I never thought those were appropriate questions to ask, but some people do.
Mm-hmm. Well, but finding your answer in something that only brings you to more questions. It's like they only looked at the church and they only looked at the Bible. So in my mind, they had a preconceived.
Yeah, well, but see, that's where religion markets itself really good, because they say we have all the answers. Don't look at that science shit, because science changes its mind every 5 seconds. You know what I mean? And
when have you ever met anybody that said that they had all the answers that weren't full of shit? And go.
Never.
I'll wait. And go. No, it like anybody that acts like a know-it-all, or anybody that tells you that they know everything about something, they're the ones that don't know everything about something. You know what? When you actually listen to scientists, like real scientists, not pretend scientists like me, what they don't do is talk about things that are outside of their field of education. They may talk about it, but they will preface it before they start talking about it. This is not my field. I'm not an expert in it. Like, do you remember when Jeff was on?
Yeah.
And we asked questions that were kind of outside of his field, and even the ones that were things that he talked about all the time, he made sure that we knew I'm not an expert in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one thing that you will never catch a religious person doing.
No, and even when they know they're making mistakes, they never couch them saying, this could be wrong.
Yes. And it's like always a dentist or an engineer that is like, we have Dr. So-and-so and he's going to be arguing against evolution today. And then he'll go into this big diatribe, and then it'll come down to somebody will say, well, what are you, doctor? Well, I'm a dentist. So you're not an evolutionary biologist.
or
no.
Yeah. They're like, and I'm a scientist.
And I'm a scientist. And I'm an engineer. It's like, you know what I mean? So like an actual scientist doesn't really, they will, because they have a quest for knowledge. So they do look into other things that are beyond their expertise, but they will never pretend to be a scientist of all things.
And one thing that I've noticed, like Lawrence Krauss or Sean Carroll say when they're speaking, is if new, better evidence comes out,
of course,
and something, it alters what our reality is, like what we think of something, I'm willing to throw out my beliefs in a second for the new evidence. Because the new evidence, but you'll never hear a religious person say that.
No, because they like that. I don't know which preacher it was, but he was like, if the Bible says 2 plus 2 is 5, then 2 plus 2 equals 5.
Yeah.
And that made no fucking sense.
No. It was, he goes, if 2 plus 2, if the Bible said 2 plus 2 equals 5, and I would accept it and find a way to explain it. Yeah. I was going to say we should do a show on Scientology, but they're going to get it all in this bonus segment right here.
Yeah. We're going off on Scientology.
Yeah.
I should have studied Mormonism more before tonight. But how do you, like, there's so much to...
It's convoluted, and there's stuff that you could research all day long, you still wouldn't know, because you're not privy to the information. And
it's very secretive.
Yeah, as they say, it's not secret, it's sacred.
Yeah, that's such a bullshit. Cop bullshit.
Yeah.
It is, I know we talked about the child molestation with the natives, but is child molestation in Mormonism a thing?
Yeah, It's just as rampant as in Catholicism. It's just
it is, eh?
but it's just not mentioned.
Okay. Is it mostly guy to girl?
Yes.
Yes.
It's more,
and it's because of the FLD.
No, the FLDS
FLD?
is the FLDS is.
Maybe explain that to people.
There's two. Mormonism has so many breakoffs from it. So the FLDS is a breakoff branch. They split over after Joseph Smith died. There was a big quarrel amongst who was going to be the next quote-unquote leader of the church or prophet. Some sided with Brigham and went to Salt Lake. Others said, no, we're going with Joseph Smith Jr., Joseph Smith's son, and Emma, and they started a different denomination. And then there was, then later on, there was some that broke off from Brigham's group after they stopped polygamy to join statehood. So, and then you get breakups of breakups, but the FLDS is the biggest branch off of Mormonism that's still around, and they practice polygamy to this day.
Are fucking crazy.
Oh, they're Looney Tunes.
Like you're underselling how crazy they are.
No, they're fucking nuts. They actually have killed people to, there is a whole book on, it's called, remember the book that Bryce mentioned, Under the Banner of Heaven?
Yeah.
Read that, and you will understand FLDS like crazy.
Tell us what they do to the male children at a certain age. They kick them out, right?
Well, they can. Some of them, what they do is they make them marry. 42-year-old men will marry 14-year-old girls or 12-year-old girls. They'll marry mother and daughter. They'll marry sisters. Uncles will marry their nieces.
Yes, and if they view the young males as competition, they just throw them right out of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a place in Canada that is a Mormon FLDS.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, Bountiful.
Where?
BC.
Bountiful.
BC.
In BC?
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And they do bride exchanges across the border.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
That this country's participating in that. Did you see any of those TV shows?
Oh, you mean like
where they took the first it was the Amish and they brought them to New York City, but they did one with the women of the FLDS that wanted to leave.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They were showing the ex-Mormons were going and helping them escape.
And they're lucky because sometimes they can end up dying. There's a group that broke off and went into Mexico from the FLDS, and they've actually came up. This was back in the 80s. They came back up and shot people that were so that they could become leader of the Church of Mexico.
Wow.
It's Mormonism is full of blood, sex, and money. That's the history of it. Joseph Smith Jr., which we're always taught growing up in Mormonism, was that he only had one wife, which is Emma Hale Smith. But you realize that's bullshit. He had 33 wives, at least.
33 wives.
And the youngest was 14.
God damn it. 33 wives.
And, he knew it was bullshit, that that his wife didn't approve, because he was sending love letters to his 14-year-old wife saying that come over at this time so that because Emma's out, and some of the women that he married were already married to living people, to living men. He'd send them off on missions and marry their wives. So,
What's wrong with the wives saying yes to that?
because again, that is that whole religion more mentality where he was the prophet, God told him that he needed to do this, you have to believe it. And where women are seen as such, and this is truly sexist, women are inferior to men. So they're submissive and they have to be. And that's the way that they toe the line, right?
That shit would never fly with me. Sorry.
No.
It just wouldn't. Fuck them. Like, it's so fucking stupid. They're lucky they got you at 11. Because if it was now, I highly doubt.
They wouldn't even come close now.
Yeah.
They can't. Like, what really blew my mind, I mean,
have they tried to contact you since?
Oh, yes. I told them to come over and debate me anytime they want. I've had them run away from my door. But my house is red listed, or what they call red listed.
Yeah, like don't go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of the fact that they know I'm an ex-Mormon, right? So.
And you may corrupt their poor, sensible Mormons.
Well, yeah. I mean, they don't want you to corrupt the missionaries there to send them home.
Yeah, but if they have the truth, then they should want to come and bring you the truth. They should be able to defeat your lies if they have the truth, Edward.
Oh, I guarantee that's exactly it. They don't. The Mormons know it's bullshit. I guarantee you the upper echelons know it's bullshit.
The ones making the money know it's bullshit.
Yeah, and they rely on credulity to propagate the myth.
This was the Wayward Atheist podcast. Follow us on Spreaker, Spreaker.com/waywardatheists. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at waywardatheists and on Facebook.com/waywardatheists. If you enjoy our content, feel free to leave us a review on iTunes and feel free to support us at patreon.com/waywardatheists.